This is called a vest, or it can be called sorry about that. It's called a vest, or it can be called a undershirt. Undershirt. It is worn both by men and women. This is called a vest or a undershirt. It is this picture right here. It can be worn by both men and women. Now, moving on to our next clothing. These are called footwear. Before I give you the name, this part is called footwear. And footwear is worn on our feet. Now, let's get started. If I take this picture here and name it, they are called shoes. And they are worn both by men and women. They are worn by both men and women. So these are called shoes. This is important. It's called shoes, and they are worn by both men and women. Moving on to my next part. These are called sandals. Sandals. Sandals are generally worn in the summer by both men and women. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out for you. Sandals are worn by both men and women in the summer. So this here is called sandals. These are sandals. Now, moving on to my next part. To my next footwear. These are called boots. I'm going to go ahead and write that out for you. These are called boots. And they are worn by both men and women. Sorry about that, let me change the color. Worn by men and women in the winter. Moving on to my next footwear. Before I do that, these are called boots. Let's not forget that. They are called boots, and they are worn by men and women in the winter. Moving on. These are called slippers. Let me go ahead and write that for you. Slippers. Oops, slippers. And they are worn by men and women. Worn by men and women in the house. So these are called slippers, and let's not forget that. Their names are slippers, and this is how you write it. Now moving on. This is called socks. Socks, and socks are worn to keep our feet warm. Worn to keep our feet warm worn under shoes and worn by both men and women. So these are called socks. Sorry about that, I forgot to ask Esther. They are worn to keep our feet warm, worn under shoes, and worn by both men and women. Now moving on to our next part. This is called headwear. Headwear. And this clothing worn on our heads. Let's go ahead and give you the name of this. This is called, actually this has 3 different names. One of them is a woolen, whoops, sorry about that, woolen hat. It's called bobble hat. And finally a knitted hat. Knitted hat. And this is worn during the winter. Worn during the winter. So this is the name here, you guys. For this picture is for that object. It's called a woolen hat. It's called a bubble hat and a knitted hat, but a knitted hat is most common. So I'm just going to write common here. Now, moving on. This is called a cap. And caps are worn by both men and women all year round. All year round. So this is called a cap. Let's not forget that. This is called a cap. It's worn by both men and women, and you can wear it all year round. Now, moving on to accessories. I'm going to go ahead and write that. Accessories. Accessories. And accessories are things other than clothing. For example, I got here a object, and this name of this object is called a belt. And what is a belt? A belt is something that you put around your pants, worn by men and women, mostly men. So the name of this object here is called a belt. Let's not forget that. Now moving on to my next accessory is a scarf. Scarf. And a scarf is worn during winter, and by both men and women. So the name of this object here you see is called a scarf. Now, moving on to my next object.